Now let's see how it Oh. No. Jesus Christ, time flies so fast. That's right, everybody. 2025 will mark the 40-year anniversary of the original release of Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, a game that's still being felt by millions of people even to this day after the game first released. While the game certainly does come off incredibly simple by today's standards, especially for its file size, where did we go wrong? It still actually packs quite a lot of entertainment underneath that gray cartridge shell. In fact, its simplicity actually helped levied it against other games that came out at a similar time. While a lot of games at the time were incredibly confusing and needed the manual most often, Super Mario Bros. Was pretty straightforward, just pick up and go. Except for those courses in the castle levels where you have to specifically move in a certain manner to complete them. I still don't know what the fuck all that was about. How would they even pull that off at the time? Regardless, Super Mario Bros. Didn't receive its 40 million copies sold for nothing. This game, alongside the Nintendo Entertainment System as a whole, both played an important role in the video game industry here in the US. Because of the 1983 video game crash, thanks to poor games and sales at the time, we could have potentially lived in a country without video games as a whole. And thanks to Super Mario Bros., we can live peacefully in a world with newer consoles and DLCs and microtransactions and NFTs. Alright, I'm being a little bit crass here, but still, Super Mario Bros. Did play a major role here, and I'm forever grateful for its existence because of it. Because the game was created in Japan, naturally it first got released on the Family Computer, or Famicom for short. The game was released over there on September 13th, 1985. But Nintendo really wanted this game to be released overseas, but naturally because of the game crash in 1983, they had to change its marketing by turning the Nintendo Entertainment System into a toy, and releasing it in America on... hold on, let me make sure I got this right. Super Mario Bros. Had released on... I'm not finding anything. Super Mario Bros. For America was released on... we actually don't know when Super Mario Bros. Released. Alright, so picture this. Sometime a few years ago, my buddy BroFilms and I were talking about our passion for NES games and homebrews. He's actually a really nice guy. If you ever go on his social media pages, he does a lot of stuff regarding the Famicom and the NES, mainly the Famicom. And if that name does sound familiar to you, if you've watched my channel before, you might have known him for doing that fake face reveal segment that appeared in my 100,000 subscriber special. I'll put all of his social media links in the description below because without him, this video genuinely would have not existed. But anyway, we were chatting about Super Mario Bros. One day, and I think specifically we were also talking about a video from Mr. Who's the Boss about facts we didn't know about Nintendo, but that's not related to this. Anyway, he pointed out during that conversation that we actually don't even have the original release date of when Super Mario Bros. Made it to America. We do have the Japanese date, as I mentioned before, that's September 13th, 1985, but we do not have the direct release date of when the original Super Mario Bros. Alongside the Nintendo Entertainment System had made it over to North America. It seems a little bit odd, right? That the one game that helped save the gaming industry from crashing here in America and would help push video games to where they are to this day, that helped give us a major levy here in the US, you know, the one game that helped save this one entire media of entertainment just doesn't have its release date like that? Just vanish, out and gone, lost media? Like, that's kind of fascinating, right? And I know it's something so minute to make a video about, like, oh, we just lost the release date when something came out. But no, to me, it feels like it's more than that. I feel like it should be important for us to know the date of the game that single-handedly saved an entire entertainment media from crashing. So that's what all built up for me to make this video. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing about every potential release date that we could have for when Super Mario Bros. First came out, list out all the resources that I have, all the other pieces of documentation that I have on hand for us to crack down exactly when Super Mario Bros. First released. But before I can continue this video, I first have to give shoutouts to three things. First off, once again, major shout out to Bro Films for being the origin for the idea for this video. Without their conversation, this video genuinely would have not been possible, so thank you for your service. I also have to give two major shout outs to one blog and one news article about this subject, the first from the mushroomkingdom.net and the other from gamedeveloper.com respectively. And it was thanks to both of these pages that I was able to get a lot of research out for this video. Before I can even talk about how Super Mario Bros. Released, I need to take you back to the beginning. Nintendo was founded— I'm just kidding with y'all, I'm not gonna do that. What'd you expect me to be, a YouTuber? No, but I do feel like we should at least discuss about how we got into this situation in the first place, where Nintendo had to be remotely halted for bringing a game over to America. Sometime around the early 1980s, Nintendo was getting ready to explore new ventures for their brand new former carpenter, now plumber character, I kind of forgot what his name was. He wore red or something. I think we'll call him Marlin. Yeah, Marlin's his name. I think that's his name. Anyway, Marvin was getting ready to become a mainstay for electronic entertainment with Nintendo. Keep in mind, they had only been in the business for about 5 years at this point, so it's not like they could become the company that would make Breath of the Wild just yet. Just give them some time. Their earliest offerings in home entertainment was a certain pastime that every family likes to do, releasing a Pong console. They had two specific things in mind when coming up with this new console. One was that the console would be a family experience for families and children to do together, but also they wanted the experience of arcade games into the home as well. Perhaps the idea is to not only have this at home, but to also have it at an affordable one-time purchase. Suckers! While you guys were paying a quarter to play pinball, I get to spend 80 quarters to have pinball all to myself! Oh, this is money well spent. In July of 1983, the family computer was released to Japanese retailers, and boy did this console flew! 500,000 units sold within the first couple of months, and the titles that came with it were making it a huge deal for the company. Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Popeye, which by the way was the origin of why they made Donkey Kong, and of course the Mario Bros. Arcade game, which would later get a port to the Famicom in September of that year. However, Shigeru Miyamoto, who was fairly new to the company at the time, really wanted to see this console go further than where it stands. A lot of the games for the console were simple, often single-screen arcade games, which was its purpose, of course. It's the arcade games at the time, but at home. But Miyamoto wanted to see this console have a game with a story, with more levels, and even an ending. Just going beyond the high score, have an incentive. Think of it as its own version of Atari's Adventure, if you will. Development would begin for this game in fall of 1984, and the team was about half a dozen people. Major props to all of these guys to create a game at this scope. Keep in mind, they were genuinely exploring a brand new concept for this console, and a new concept for gaming as a whole. We hadn't seen a game like this for such a system at this time, especially in a heaping, whopping, hard drive breaking 40 kilobytes!
Whoa, slow down, sir!
Also, major props to Koji Kondo for the soundtrack. One of his main influences was American jazz music, specifically songs like Sister Marian and Let's Not Talk About It by Friendship. Both would become very important for the ground and underground themes respectively. And in September of 1985, Super Mario Bros. Would be released for the Famicom. But now hold your horses, Mr. T Gaming. Around this time, America was going through something that we like to call, the video game crash. So because of that, Nintendo had to get a little bit clever when it comes to advertising and how to promote this game to an audience that, at the time, despised the idea of video games because of how basic, generic, and for the most part, awful they were. So the best way that Nintendo decided to go about it was by promoting the system as a toy and also redesigning it to have a very basic look. Cartridges were much wider than the Famicom ones. There's this little top-loading box to make it look like you're putting in a new piece of entertainment to go with it. And of course, the controllers were also very much simplified. All of this would lead to the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System, which made it all the way to store shelves on October 18th, 1985. And this is where issues start to begin. You see, Super Mario Bros. Wasn't the first pack-in title for the NES. Instead, the honor would go to games like Duck Hunt and Gyromite. See, they actually had a bunch of different types of NESs that came out at the time. Some of them included the Zappers, some of them included Rob the Robot. taking away the title of another NES robot if you ask me. And since Super Mario Bros. Got packaged separately for retailers, that can only mean one thing! Okay, no, but seriously, because of Super Mario Bros. Having to be packaged separately, that meant that the retailers that were selling it at the time did not keep track of it properly when it first got released. They probably might have had it stored somewhere, and due to time, they might have lost it. As much as we like to diss on modern day technology now because of how distracting it is, and trust me, I'm one of those people, it is nice to know that we have a bunch of this information all at once, because it's systems like those that are in place that help prevent things like this from happening. Well, most of the time. And now, all that's left for archivalists and internet historians is to look through all of the publications, magazines, and other pieces of information from retailers to see if we could finally crack down the official release dates of Super Mario Bros. So, with all of this in mind, what could be the potential release date? I'm going to be approaching these dates in calendar order because it's the most obvious way to do it, and I'm also going to be listing the reasons people online, as well as historians and researchers, believe that these are the potential release dates for this game. Here are the rules for these potential release dates. 1. The date has to land on a Friday, and 2. The date has to be before Christmas of 1985. Let's not waste any time. Let's get to diving. Now, it should also be worth noting that the NES has actually been in development way beforehand, and I'm not just counting the Famicom, I'm actually counting about when Nintendo tried to bring it over to America. Nintendo had a booth at the Consumer Electronics Show in January of 1985, showing off their potential new video game console, the Advanced Video System, or AVS for short. Needless to say, the event flopped for them, so they would begin to start developing the next version of the system and try to find a way to promote it here to America while also dealing with the game crash of here as well. So that means we're gonna have to mark out these dates for the NES's release. October 5th is the date that the Milwaukee Journal released its headline about the NES. The article reads, "The action series will contain 5 games immediately and 3 more in 1986. Pinball, Ice Climber, Clu Clu Land, Kung Fu, and Super Mario Bros. Are the announced titles for this year." So yeah, not an official release date, but hey, good to note that people were knowing about the game early on, and we have confirmation this came out afterwards. Alright, so this one's gonna be a little bit of a fun one. If you guys remember the Super Mario All-Stars Wii bundle that came out in 2010, one of the things included in that bundle was a booklet to celebrate Super Mario's 25th anniversary. That booklet shows a bunch of release dates on the side for each game, and one of them shows that Super Mario Bros. Release date was October 18th, 1985. This is also the date that appears on Nintendo's website, as well as the Masterpiece section in Super Smash Bros. Boom! That's gotta be the release date for the game! That's the date that appears on everything! That's gotta be it, right?
No.
Okay, no, not exactly. A lot of historians and archivalists have debunked this release date and stated that this could never have been the date that Mario came out. On top of that, after some internet sleuthing, people have discovered the Copyright Office's listings for the NES as well as the launch titles, including Super Mario Bros. Which, by the way, mainly started at the Macy's store in New York, and the reason I bring it up is because it's going to be very important later on. And while most of the games from the 15 NES launch titles do have a date of October 18th, Super Mario Bros. Didn't actually appear on there. Instead, the manual for the game had been given a publication date of October 31st, 1985. And this is where the Halloween theory comes in. Yeah, this is why some people believe that Super Mario Bros. Had to have come out during Halloween because of this publication on the Copyright Office. However, it should be worth noting that some companies like to put copyrights on things way before they even came out. Although it is really funny to me to think about Super Mario Bros. Coming out during Halloween, especially since Japan got it on Friday the 13th. That would have been so funny, honestly. Nintendo would continue their New York test launch throughout the entirety of November. So to promote the ongoing rollout, Macy's launched an advertisement that rolled out on November 17th. This advertisement showed Rob the Robot on one side, and on the other, a list of all the games that were available there, with one of them being, well, you guessed it, Super Mario Bros. Okay, that has to be it. That has to be when the game first launched, right? No, not even that either! Because apparently evidence suggests that Super Mario Bros. Didn't even appear at the New York launch. Speculation suggested they wanted it to appear there, as well as releasing it during Christmas of 1985, and so to get it through early, they put it in the Macy's ad, but it's likely that the game had to get delayed. But now here's where one of my favorite theories comes in. So we have a lot of lacking evidence to prove that Super Mario Bros. Got launched during this time. Despite news coverage and despite photographs and everything, a lot of evidence that we've seen so far for a 1985 launch has been debunked in one way, shape, or form. So how about we go the year above that? Another test launch for the NES would appear in Los Angeles, California in February of 1986, followed by two more in Chicago, Illinois, and San Francisco. But then finally, on September 27th, 1986, the NES would be released nationwide in America. This would also be around the time where the famous pack-in bundle with Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt would be released. So with all of this in mind, it wouldn't be hard to believe Super Mario Bros. Coming out in 86 rather than the beloved 1985 date. And according to Nintendo officials, even they said that Super Mario Bros. Didn't come out in 85, it was available the year afterwards. This actually wouldn't be too far off considering that Super Mario Bros. 3 came out in 1988 and then was released here in America in 1990. But personally, if you ask me, because of how much coverage there was of the game during 1985, I honestly believe the game had to have come out at that point as a separately packaged title before it became the iconic pack-in bundle we all knew and loved. I know I just mentioned before about the Copyright Office and how some companies would put copyrights on their stuff way before it comes out, but usually that's only within like a few months before they would release it, and this would have probably been, God, at least like a year or so before the nationwide rollout of the NES. But it seems to have agreed upon that the game had to have come out during October and November. And personally, for what I've seen, a lot of people think November 17th had to have been the date of the game if it did appear on the Macy's advertisement. But unfortunately, this is where the investigation comes to an end. No, seriously though, that's it. I wish there was a more satisfying ending to this, but unfortunately, that is where the investigation ends from here. It honestly saddens me how convoluted the entire release was for the NES, all just because they wanted to avoid failure because of the game crash. If the video game industry hadn't been as bad as it was during 1983 or 1982, we probably would have had a better rollout and we would have had a better preservation of this release date. And like I said, I know that this is very minute, and I know it's something we don't have to care about too much because after all, the game's out, but it does saddens me that we'll never know the official date of the game that helped push the NES to where it is to this day. Or, if I could put it more broadly, where the video game industry is to this day. If Super Mario Bros. Hadn't come out, sure, there probably would have been another game in the future that would have done it, but there was a good chance that it wouldn't be the exact same. If it wasn't for Super Mario Bros. Pushing the limits of the NES at the time, we wouldn't see video games having as much influence and as much personality as they would today if it wasn't for that little 40 kilobyte game. I am so happy that we do have this game, and I'm so happy that we are still seeing Super Mario titles to this day, and I think this is a good reason why we need to talk about gaming preservation. I know, out of the field, but genuinely though, if it wasn't for video game preservation, we wouldn't be able to play most of these games whenever we want to. There's a good chance they actually would have been lost to time, and I'm so grateful that they're not. If you are an aspiring creator and you want to create your own project, your own game, your own music, your own videos, whatever, please try your best to protect them. If you have a project that you're currently working on right now, please do your best to preserve it, because trust me, you'll have no idea how valuable that could be in the future. And who knows, maybe your work might change the world one day. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it. This was genuinely one of the most complicated videos I ever had to work on. Trust me, this video had so much research put into it, and it had so much mental energy drained onto it. Once again, I want to give a big thank you to both the Mushroom Kingdom website and also my buddy Bro Films for our conversation, because if it wasn't for both of these, this video genuinely would not exist. So once again, thank you so much for that. So I want to hear what you think. What release date do you think Super Mario Bros. Had? Tell me in the comments. And if you have any other suggestions for what you want me to talk about next, and if you have any fan art that you want to submit to me, you can submit them all via Blue Sky, Discord, or in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to hit the like button, and if you're new, the subscribe button, and the notification bell so that way you'll be notified whenever I upload a video. And if you want to support me even further, you can go check out my merch store and my Ko-fi page, which will both be in the description below. Anyway, with all that said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!